I mean, ornithology, I feel like people either have a connection to that word or they don't.
Yeah.
And then once they learn the word, they immediately have a connection to it.
Where are the quiet gays? Where are the quiet gays supposed to go?
Hello.
Hello. Oh my gosh, we found each other.
How are you?
I'm so tired.
I feel
I am almost done with school. We test tomorrow at 6:30 a.m.
You got it, girl.
I know, I'm so scared. I mean, I'm like not, but it's just like the skills part is just so many steps, like every little tiny thing you have to remember. So it's just like a lot. Ooh, how are you? How have you been?
Good. I slept until I'm really embarrassed.
11 a.m. 2 p.m.
1 p.m.
Oh, good. You probably needed it.
Oh my gosh, boy, did I need it after the work week I had.
Yeah, what were you doing?
I was on a commercial that I have done before that's top secret, but you'll know soon enough.
Ooh, can't wait.
But I have another top secret commercial on Sunday that, oh my gosh, I can't wait. I cannot wait until I can tell you because you're gonna flip out.
Okay, top secret, like you can't tell me at all, or top secret, we have to wait till after we're off Zoom?
Top secret, like I can't tell you at all.
Oh man.
But yeah, and then so I have that on Sunday, and then I'm a little nervous because that probably might get done very late. And then for a different job, a TV show that I used to work on that I'm now gonna go back and do some days on, I have a 4:30 a.m. call.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, oh, please, Lord have mercy on me. I hope I don't get out at like midnight on Sunday.
Oh my God, that would suck.
Yeah.
But then you could just sleep till 1 p.m. again and you'll be okay.
On Tuesday.
Yeah, on Tuesday. No sleep Sunday to Monday.
But
But
yeah, that's my life right now.
I know you and I are both just working so much. It's crazy.
Yeah. I wish you could smell my house right now. I just deep cleaned all day today and it smells so good.
Oh my God. I deep cleaned literally last week and it was incredible.
It's the best feeling.
Wait, what's your scent? Because I use like a lot of lavender.
Lemon.
I knew you were going to be lemon. I almost said it too. I was like, I bet yours smells like lemon. And I myself am a lavender girl. So
yeah, I like that fresh, the like
fresh
citrusy,
scent.
Yeah, you know.
And I like the like go to sleep scent, the calming scent. Oh my gosh. You want to do our intro?
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody, to the Lesbian Book Club podcast. It's your hosts, Lauren and Haylie, and we are so excited today to talk to you about The Bloodwood Society by Ainsley Doty. Ainsley sent us this book and said, hey, one of these characters is going to be a lesbian, and you're going to have to read it to find out. And we said, bet. So let's get into it.
Are we going to talk about our feelings?
Yeah, of course we're talking about our feelings.
Okay, good. Wait, but before we get into it, I have to tell you the funniest story, and I should have done this before our intro, but whatever. Last week, when I recorded that little blurb telling people we didn't have a new episode, Ava was sitting next to me on the couch, and I was like, just be quiet for like 2 minutes, please. Just shh. Right? And she's like, okay. So she, of course, interrupted me the first time. Then I get through it, and I like listen back to it, and I put like the music in and whatnot, and she goes, Mommy, why did you change your voice? I was like, I didn't, but there's like a difference between like when you're speaking for other people to hear and when I'm like telling you to be quiet, you know? Yeah. But it was really funny. But anyway, yes, the Bloodwood Society. I actually really enjoyed it. I really liked it. It was like the way I would describe it to someone was it's like a dystopian YA novel, but like it's got like mixes of Hunger Games, it's got mixes of Divergent, even has like some Maze Runner stuff, some Ready Player One stuff. I don't know. I just felt like it was like a smattering of a bunch of things put together, which all the things that I like. I actually really enjoyed it. What was your overall thought process on this?
Yes, I thought this book was phenomenal. It was very well written. It
Mm-hmm.
was hard to put down. It was really entertaining. Um, and it feels like it could absolutely be the next new big dystopian book for, that audience.
Yeah.
I am wondering about the sort of publishing going on,
Oh,
because with publishers like the Hunger Game that put out books like the Hunger Games and
yeah.
Divergent and the Maze Runner, those obviously hit really big audiences and had really, sleek, polished, finished looks to them.
Yeah.
And this is clearly an indie author that's doing a lot of self-promotion, self-publishing, ebook format. And so I don't know if that's going to change in the future, or, what kind of challenges she's going to come up against. And if she's going to be able to reach an audience like that. But if she's able to reach an audience like that, I think that people will eat it up. Like, I really do think it's a phenomenal book. And the whole time I was thinking about, like, okay, this could be a really great movie if it gets put into the right hands. Because if it gets put in the wrong hands, like the Percy Jackson, the first Percy Jackson movie.
Yeah.
Oh God, don't do that to us.
Yeah.
But this could be, with the right production value put into it, just a really phenomenal movie.
I think so too. I think the way she painted the scenery and everything, like the glowing mushrooms, that was cool. I could like see that in my brain. And then like the tunnels, which is what kind of reminded me of like Maze Runner a little bit. And yeah, I could see it being, with the right production, really, really a big hit. Like I'm just thinking about like them running through the tunnels and like the score that could be behind it with the glow of the mushroom. Like it could be really cool.
Yeah, and it hits a really, I think, a wide intrigue. Like
Yeah.
what you're saying with the score, there's so many different creatives that I think would have an interest in being a part of this. Like you get a production designer and art designers that want to build sets like this and worlds like this, and you get a director that wants to be part of this, and actors that want to have this kind of action on their reel, and you get a screenwriter that wants to develop this book into the movie format, and you get producers that want to put together this kind of team, and composers that want to build a score like that. And you, like, there's so many different creatives that would be, I think, very interested in backing this and getting together in sort of that team, which would be so cool in this story. And also the characters are she did a really good job of developing very individual characters that are easily identifiable. And this is such a big trap that authors easily fall into, is that there's too many characters to keep track of and it's hard to tell them apart. And she has so many characters, and especially ones that are important, that it would have been so easy to lose track, but you don't.
I never did. They were all like so different, and they all had their like unique individual relationships with everyone else, which was really, really, really cool to see. And yeah, you don't get anyone mixed up. It's really difficult to mix any of these characters up because they are so different.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the tools she uses as that is their cultural identities, because these people are coming from all over the world, but she doesn't rely on that. Exactly. Yeah. She's not relying on like, okay, so and so is from here, and so this is what they look like, or this is, the things that they do. She's using their character. Exactly. It's not a stereotype. She's using who they are as a person and the way that they act as the foundation. But it does help that where each of these people came from and their backstories.
Right. Okay, so I want to talk about what you texted me about this book. So of course Haylie finished it way before I even started it. And she goes, okay, just to prepare you. This book is like 115 pages. Yeah.
117-page book.
Okay. See, she knows. And there's no lesbianism until page 88. And she goes, and she's like, I want to see if you can pinpoint who is going to be queer in this book. And I was like, I got this. I am so good at this. And literally like 2 or 3 chapters in, I was like, wait, are we going to review? Should we just reveal it now? I hope people read it.
Yeah, I feel like if people are listening to it, they're prepared for a spoiler.
Okay. I was like immediately Vashti. Like immediately, I know it's her because, and this was the only part that was like kind of stereotypical. I was like, the mean, distant girl, like that is obviously the lesbian. And you didn't give me anything. I actually thought I was wrong because you were like, give me the like, emoji. And I was like, does that mean I'm wrong? I'm really normally good at this. And then I was like throwing in other characters and you're like, no, like I'm not going to tell you. And then lo and behold, called it. I thought though that she was going to be having a relationship with the Umbo.
Oh, I totally thought that too for a lot of this. I was like, definitely the Umbo is giving gay vibes.
Mm-hmm. But that was the only character that I was a little confused about because I couldn't remember who she was the girl that Vashti was like seeing. I knew that we had read about her previously. I couldn't remember the context. And I had to like go back.
Yeah. She's one of the like top dogs. Mm-hmm. One of the Umbo's confidants.
And Vashti is cool. Vashti's like pretty cool character, I thought. Mm-hmm. I mean, they all kind of were. What is the third girl's name in their little group? Because you have Katak, Vashti, Everly. What's the fourth girl? The little sweet little girl.
That is.
I feel like it starts with an S. No, Shelby is the sister. That might be my S that I was looking for. We have Tazine. That's not it. That's the Umbo. Katak.
Ines.
Yes. There it is. Thank you, Haylie. She is cute. And honestly, Inez and Everly's relationship kind of reminded me of Katniss and Rue. Everly and Inez were closer in age. They're only like 3-4 years apart, while like obviously Katniss and Rue was like 10 years apart. But it really reminded me of that situation, and that Inez was like pretty smart and you didn't like really know it until you knew it. And Everly had like a real big protective like feeling over her. So I really liked their relationship. I thought it was cute.
Yeah. Ines is very reserved and kind of scared a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But we also see in the game where they're all trying to become the there's all of these like
the main tracker.
Yeah.
What is it called?
The blood tracker, moon tracker. Moon track. There's all of these names in this book that obviously it's like a dystopian sci-fi novel. Like but anyway, the moon tracker. There's this game where basically it's like it has the high stakes of playing capture the flag in the dark with your friends in the woods. Like
okay, no, we played this game. We used to play this game. And you would have a mark and you would like have to drive or like, well, we did this before we could drive, but you would have like a mark and you would have like Nerf guns and we went to like at night to one of the elementary schools here and like you would go and if you got them, then you get their mark. Like I've played this game and it's terrifying.
It's so scary. It's like, oh my gosh, we used to play Romans and Catholics
oh my God, Haylie.
Church, and we had secret tunnels underneath our church. Yeah, and we would go in there and it was so scary. It was so scary.
What were the tunnels for?
I don't know.
It has to have been nefarious things.
I don't know.
I don't want to think about that. Okay. Well, that's even scarier.
Anyway, it was a scary game and Ines ends up being the moon tracker. She like outsmarts everybody, makes them think that she's been out of the game, and then ends up winning.
it was crazy because she was the first one when they woke up. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but whatever. When they woke up, she was the one that was like, so guys, I went out like trying to get medicine or whatever last night, and I got marked. And then they're like, oh, I did too. And oh, I did too. Like if Inez had not started it, like I feel like we may have caught on. But I was like, oh my God, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
That was a really good move. That was crazy.
She's always solving their riddles and things. Yeah, I love Inez. Yeah, so I will say about this book, and my note to you is that this I would not call a sapphic novel.
No, I wouldn't either.
I would say, yes, obviously there is a lesbian character. Well, two, because there's two involved. There's two lesbian characters. There's also two gay characters. And there's the Umbo who seems very sexually ambiguous. But just the nature of her character, she is kind of aloof, and we never end up knowing anything of that nature about her.
Right.
So I think kind of the beauty of this book is that there is really wide representation of cultures all around the world, lots of different kinds of identities, and we end up seeing that with Vashti and Ibimi with the lesbianism. But I wouldn't say that this is a sapphic novel, just so that our listeners aren't anticipating a sapphic book when they go and read this. But
we did feel a little tricked, but we're not mad about it because we really enjoyed the book, just like on face value. It was really good. But we were like, tricky, but we're glad because it was really good. And I did their relationship was sweet. Book. Yeah.
So let's talk about the plot of this book.
Yeah, let's go to the beginning and start off with this whole book is about rebellion and like social unrest. It's very Hunger Games. Like there's been this war, and now there's one controlling government group called the Dust, and they're very much like a dictatorship. And we know that Everly has a sister, Shelby, and Everly has a mom who has died. And we kind of get two different accounts of this mom's death. We get one in the beginning, and then we get one towards the end that are similar but different because I think it's Everly's understanding of what happened. And then her dad, who we know that the Dust has taken, and he used to be a teacher, right? And he like studied ornithology, which is birds, which as I get older, I understand more and more why everyone bird watches.
Oh yeah.
Like my mom has a video camera on her bird feeder in North Carolina and sends me pictures and videos all the time. And they're so cute. And like, she's like telling me what the bird is and everything. And I'm like, I get it. So when it was funny when she was mentioning that about the dad, I was like, that reminds me of my mom.
There was this little boy who was really good friends with my sister in grade school. And he knew everything about birds, trains, and the periodic table. Like from age like 6 or 7, he knew everything there was to know about those 3 topics. And so I have known the word ornithology since a young age because of this boy. So shout out to him.
Cute, that's cute.
Anyway, that just triggered that memory for me.
I mean, ornithology, I feel like people either have a connection to that word or they don't.
Yeah.
And then once they learn the word, they immediately have a connection to it. So yeah, this does seem a little futuristic, especially because the main almost character in the book that everyone's protecting is this like cure that the rebellion is trying to like protect. It's kind of like save the world. It comes into play before we even know it comes into play, which is very cool. The way she did that.
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody in the rebellion is protecting this, but most of them don't know that that's what they're doing.
Right.
Like they're following orders, but none of them know that the cure even exists except for the select top few.
Which I think is such an interesting overall theme in the book, because like this is supposed to be the rebellion and the like freedom side, but I loved how she kind of put up the rebellion and the dust as two halves of like of the same coin, almost like two sides of the same coin, like almost like one isn't necessarily better than the other. Because yeah, the secrecy of the point of the rebellion being kept from like the lay people and everyone's just following orders, like that can go so wrong so fast. Like they did that experiment, the one with the shocks. Have you heard of that?
The one with what?
It's like where, yeah, it's where they have a person in another room and then they bring someone into a room that has like a one-way mirror, basically, like a cop room. And it's like a doctor, and he says, hey, like we're doing this experiment and we need you to like shock the person with like electro shocks. And don't worry, it can't cause any lasting harm. And they might say stop, but you need to keep going for the experiment. And it's about like authority and how we bend to authority. And basically like these people will shock someone to the point of like death almost. And obviously they weren't actually doing it, but the reactions was like an actor, right? And they will shock the person to like the point of death because this doctor is saying that it's fine, even though they visibly can like see the person and like in their soul, like understand what they're doing, they still do it. And like only like one or two people was like, I'm not doing it. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. But most people went to the highest voltage.
Oh my
and that
God.
just reminded me of like when you were talking about how they're following orders and you know they don't know why they're following orders, but they just are. Like that's not good, you know?
No, I mean it's the dangerous position that we get ourselves in any world where we leave ourselves with only two options, right? We end up with option A or option B, and there's nothing in between, and there's no process to get to like anybody else, which is very relevant to
oh my God, so much has happened since we recorded last.
I know, really, like the state of the United States has changed very, very quickly.
This is the craziest thing that's ever happened. I am just like, I feel like we're living obviously like in a banana republic, but I'm like cautiously hopeful.
Right. Yeah.
I'm so scared. I'm like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to jinx it.
We also see this in the Hunger Games with President Coin and President Snow, which that's the thing that Suzanne Collins does is she writes when things feel important to her to reflect on the world, what she sees happening. And
she's writing right now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
And she wrote that exact situation between Snow and
that was good.
Snow and Coin. And then we end up seeing Katniss choose to shoot President Coin instead of President Snow at the end, which she knows that Snow is going to end up getting, taken by the crowd anyway. But
right.
Katniss recognizes the danger of going from one dictator to another, and that's not me, saying that that's what's happening right now is that we're like going from a dictator to another dictator. But
no, ours is a little more different and a little more nuanced, but yes.
Yeah. But just in the terms of comparing the Hunger Games to the Bloodwood Society, it's a very similar situation going on where the dust is this just really tightly run ship of just hardship for the people and a government that doesn't care about the people. And then the rebellion is supposed to be going against that and helping overturn that. But we kind of see the dark side of this top leadership doing whatever they have to do, and sometimes at the risk of their own people and hurting their own people to accomplish their goals. I don't know. I think that it's a really good comparison.
Yeah. And we even have a character who, like Katniss, recognizes this, and that's Nicole, who ends up being painted as the villain. And I'm not like disagreeing with that. And we don't find that out until the very end. But this character, Nicole, is the one that's like, the dust is no different than what we're doing here. And I don't care. I'm going to try and basically get what I need for what I want to happen, because neither of these two options is a good option at the end of the day, because none of them are providing what they say they're going to provide.
Right. Yeah. She chooses the self-preservation of herself and her closest loved ones over everything else.
Yeah. And I didn't blame her for it. Like, I understood. I was like, yeah, obviously everyone's doing bad things, right? Like, you get into this dystopian type of book and there's no like ultimately good character, right? Everyone's killing someone, everyone's beating someone up, everyone's, in the fight for their lives. So I don't blame Nicole for being like, well, I'm doing this shit anyway. I might as well just do it the way I want to do it, instead of trying to follow orders for something that could be a cause that I don't even believe in. Okay, so Everly is basically taken to this rebellion. Her sister is like being arrested for some reason by the dust. She sees this, she wants to save her, but she can't. And this mysterious man on a motorcycle just swoops in and is like, you want to come with me? And she's like, well, I guess. And she gets injected in the neck, I'm pretty sure, which is like, that's crazy. And like, it knocks her out. And next thing she knows, she wakes up in like a coffin.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And we don't know what happens with Shelby, who is, again, is the sister. But we do know that she's really, really sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she wakes up in this coffin, pops the lid up, and finds that she's in a room full of coffins, like 50 of them or so
scary.
And is in a cave. And so she gets out. She's like trying to find her way around and is obviously pretty scared. She ends up finding a couple other people, finds that they're running from people who have crow masks on and seem to be trying to hurt them or kill them or something of the sort. So they are now running in these underground tunnels away from these people. And so this is how she meets Inez, Katak, and then Vashti.
Mm-hmm. And they did meet one other boy in the beginning, but he kind of gave up running and was just like, I'm just going to be caught. Like, I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because he is made an example of a little bit later in the book. And it's kind of the first thing we see where, well, we'll just talk about it. So he gives up, he gets captured. The rest of the four in the group make it to this like almost like armory station underneath in the tunnels, and they like arm themselves with some weapons. And then all of a sudden everyone in the tunnels meets in the middle, and it's like this big huge tree, which also reminded me of Avatar. Like the lifeblood of the society is like at this tree. Anyway, they go there and they bring this boy out, and they're like, this boy quit, and they like throw him overboard, basically like into this like big giant hole or something or other. And basically it's just like, oh, he's dead. Now, luckily, I don't think he died. Knowing what I knew further on in the book and how it's like these like two different like portals or whatever, I'm hoping they didn't like kill him. But it was like, oh shit, this is real. If you don't do it right, you're gonna die. And I think that's the first time Everly like realizes it. Obviously, she's really scared, but seeing this like example be made of this little boy was like, oh, damn. It's like when the first killing happens in the Hunger Games. You're just like, oh, they're actually doing this. Got it.
Yeah. Yes. So Vashti is pretty resistant to joining this group. She wants to remain independent. She ends up joining them because somebody comes down the tunnel, and so they, pull her into a hiding spot. But they find these weapons, they load up, they go and end up surrounded by the crows and find out that their weapons are rubber and useless.
Which that's so scary.
And this is where they find out that, okay, this is the rebellion. They're in the Bloodwood tree of the Bloodwood Society, and they just finished the first of what will be their trials to be inducted into this Bloodwood Society. And there will be several more in front of them that will be very trying. And if they fail, then what will happen is the same thing that happened to this boy that just got thrown into the hole, right? So,
yeah. Well, there's two deaths. There's the banishment one. Is that, or the death one? Well, there's the one where it's like they kill you. And then there's one that's called the other death, I think. And it's basically like a memory wiping serum that they give you. And then they just like send you back.
Yeah. Back to where you came from. So the dust is after you, because all of these people, they seek out like the most desperate people, essentially. So they also in this meeting at the center of the Bloodwood tree, after they've all been chased and woken up in coffins, they find out that, okay, if you pass all of your trials, then not only will we induct you to the Bloodwood Society, you'll be part of the rebellion for the rest of your life, but also we will grant you your biggest wish. One wish, whatever that biggest wish is. So they get brought in to look into this, like, basically it's like a magic.
You know what it was? It reminded me of the memory pool in Harry Potter that you like dip your head in and you see the memories with like Dumbledore and Harry. Yeah. That is what I pictured. It was like, okay, come up and I'm going to be able to see what your deepest wish is. And I was like, cool. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And that's how the Umbo, who is the leader of the group at the Bloodwood Society, at the Bloodwood tree.
Yes, whose name is Tazeen.
Mm-hmm.
Umbo is like chief or like leader. It's like their word for it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. The Umbo can also see what you're experiencing while you're looking into this pool. Mm-hmm. And then she decides like, okay, yes, we can grant you that. And then you move on, right? So all of these people are extremely desperate for one thing. And that's what their wish is. And so they are now really motivated to pass these trials and become part of this group.
Yeah, now they're internally motivated and externally motivated. And honestly, like those two things being combined, the motivation factor is so high that, especially like, okay, the external is like, we're going to kill you if you don't. And the internal is being like, I'm going to get my wish, which like for Everly is a cure for her sister and getting her sister out of wherever the dust is keeping her. Like that's a big motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do learn other people's motivations as the book goes on.
Yeah. It becomes cutthroat because of this. Because if somebody else is a threat to you passing your trials, then you want to get rid of them somehow, or you know, get rid of. You want to exterminate the threat. However, it is that you do that. So it becomes a very cutthroat and dangerous environment for these people. So they end up splitting into groups that are all named after animals that live underground. Because that's where these people live, is underground, under the Bloodwood tree.
Wait, but they don't get their name yet.
No, not yet. You're right.
I'm like, don't tell them. We got to go through the first challenge first, because the name is so funny.
It is. These groups are made. These groups are made because of who you ended up grouping up with while you were being chased through the tunnels.
Right.
So that puts our main character, who this story is told through the perspective of, is Everly. This puts Everly, Vashti, Katak, and Ines in a group. And so now they go on to their trials, which include...
And they have a mentor whose name is Micah. And it's Micah, right? Mm-hmm. And Micah does not seem to care that he is the mentor for these 4 people who are fighting for their lives.
No.
he's very apathetic. He's not helping them. He doesn't get to where their training things are on time. Like, doesn't teach them anything. They're really, really on their own.
Yeah, he's like actually put off that he has to do this.
Yeah, and we do find out why. But still, come on, help him out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's like convinced that they're not going to make it. He's like, no, my recruits like don't have any potential, and so like why waste my time? And Micah is dating Nicole. They're very like lovey-dovey, very touchy. They sneak off together all the time. So that's a little side interpersonal dynamic that's going on.
Yeah. Which Micah's attitude, considering that he knows about his recruits, is really interesting. Because Everly, another part of this pool thing is Everly had a different experience in the wish pool than the rest of the recruits did. And that is that she had a very, very powerful vision that ended up making her pass out for days.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And she kind of, got made fun of by other recruits for that a little bit because they were like, oh, you couldn't handle the wish pool. But the Umbo takes her aside later and is like, yeah, well, you kind of, that shows that you might have some potential. Like, this is something that is a power of sorts that potential future Umbos can have.
Right.
And so this points to something that we find out about Everly later in the book. And Micah already has this information, which makes it really confusing to me of why he has this attitude about her.
That's true. You're right. I didn't put that piece together. Thank you. It's clicking. Yeah, why wouldn't you be wanting to help her the most? Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that. So they come to their first trial. And if I'm remembering correctly, it's a giant obstacle course. Reminded me like the ones that are like on Survivor, but like bigger, like Cadet Kelly. Sorry, all my references are going to be like Disney Channel original movies. But
American Ninja Warrior.
Yeah. Very much like that. And I'm pretty sure Vashti comes in first, right? But the main thing that happens in this, she does win. I remember.
Yeah.
The main thing that happens in this is Everly ends up accidentally breaking this girl's leg. They're like climbing this giant rope, and this girl like grabs her ankle, and she goes to like shake her off, and in the process makes that girl fall. And it says that like her bone is sticking out of her leg. And like Everly obviously has like very mixed feelings about this, and she continues on. Vashti ends up winning and has multiple opportunities to like help her team, and she like doesn't. So because the winner is going to get a feast. And so Vashti's like so excited, but then she's like, actually, you guys like would be sharing it. But since you didn't help your team, like what does she say? Like they don't get to partake, and you only get a certain amount of something, right?
I think that, they got like rice or something. It was just a very normal meal. They took away this prize that she would have gotten because she didn't understand teamwork.
Right. And I feel like that gives us such insight into Vashti. And she's not even mad at herself. She's so external in her like feelings and hatred that she like is pissed at her teammates. She's pissed at the Umbo. She's pissed at everyone else without like looking at herself, being like, oh, if I had listened to the directions and like, how it's supposed to be a team effort, like, but also some groups don't even finish. So they're completely banished from I want to say island, but I don't think it's an island.
It is
an island.
It is. Yeah.
Jinx.
Also was, when Vashti shows up to the Bloodwood Society, she is wearing a sari, and she has a red dot on her forehead, which is a bindi.
Yes.
And this indicates to us that she is probably Hindu and Indian, and I can't remember exactly when Katak says this, but he kind of says it as like a warning to her almost of like, hey, I know what that red dot meant.
Because she took it off like immediately.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
she sheds the sari in this obstacle course. It got caught, it was getting in her way, and she just slides right out of it.
Yep.
And becomes free of it and is just moving so quickly. And pretty much immediately upon her arrival at the Bloodwood Society, she wipes the bindi off of her face.
Yeah.
Later, we find out what all of this meant to her. But Everly, at some point very early on, kind of as a team bonding thing, asks her team, like, okay, well, what's each of your stories? Why are all of you here? And Vashti kind of says, like, well, I don't even know why I'm here. Like, my life was perfect.
I don't have anything against the dust. And
yeah, like, I lived in a really nice hotel. My parents were, like, high up in the dust. Everything was fine, blah, blah, blah. And obviously that's not very believable because everybody that's there is there for a reason.
Right.
And so we find out about this, and I actually have some things that I looked into about what it might have been like for her, where she came from, and some of the implications on her sexuality. Which this, by the way, this book is happening in 2050. So things have, or 2070, sorry. All right, this book's happening in 2070. So things have changed since what we are experiencing in this day, and very rapidly, obviously, as the dust has taken over almost the entire world, except for a lot of, as they call it in the book, they say the Afro continent, referring to Africa, which is kind of controlled by like African militia groups that work for the dust. But I would assume that because of the characters and the way that they show up still with a lot of the like cultural things about their areas intact as the way that we know of them today, I would assume that a lot of the cultural things have remained intact.
Yeah, probably.
So anyway, when we get there and we are talking about her sexuality, I do have some notes about that.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that part. So no, I am, because you always do fun research that I'm like, oh, what? So they get through the first trial and they all survive. Basically, it's like these trials are set up to either kill you or make you give up. And how many are there? Why do I want to say 7, but I think there's 5.
I think 5.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
No. You're probably not, Haylie.
You have such confidence in me.
I do. I really do. It's a proven track record, though. It's not out of nowhere. So then we move on to the second trial. Do you have? I have them all mixed up in my head. I really remember the canopy gliding one, but I feel like that's the third. But is that the second one?
That sounds like this. I think that's the second one, and then next we have bees, I think.
Oh, the bees wasn't the challenge. They got attacked.
Oh yeah, that was just an activity?
Yeah, that was just a whoops. Okay, what's the second trial?
Yeah, I think that was where they got their name.
Yes.
In the treehouse.
Yes, but how did they get into the treehouse? Because that was like the second part.
They had to free climb.
Yes, they had to free climb the tree, and it like had a bunch of bats in the middle of it, and like it was just really crazy. And they get to the top, and there's this puzzle that they can see from the ground that they have to like rearrange the letters and get it to say something before that they have to like get into these like paragliders and jump off the tree, which again, this could be such a cool movie. And like they jump off this tree and then they make it to like the checkpoint or something like that.
Right. Which when they're up there, Everly sees the Umbo and some of the Umbo's group walking through the woods. But behind them, trailing behind them, she sees another figure and realizes that someone is spying on them. And it's already known kind of throughout the society that there is a spy somewhere among them.
Yes, someone who's reporting to the dust from, it's like an internal spy. Someone's been flipped.
Yep. So they're trying to figure out who that is. So Everly takes the letters and spells out, "I see a rat."
Mm-hmm.
And then the Umbo immediately, like, they put out their torches and they turn around and disappear.
Yeah.
So funny, though, that she had rat in that sentence and they still hadn't figured out what their thing was.
But also, Rat Girl Podcast.
Yeah. We're Rat Girls here.
Oh my God, I sent Haylie the funniest tweet that I saw, and it was like this rat dancing, and it was like all the rats in Paris right now. I'm like, oh my God, there's gonna be another plague. And Haylie, I texted you and I said, that was not the reaction I was expecting. And I read it at like 3 a.m. So I was laughing at like 3 a.m. in the morning. But she said, what did you say? You said, who took that video of me? And I was like cracking up. Who the fuck posted that video of me?
Yeah.
And I literally at 3 a.m. was like, that is funny. I was like laughing. But yes, because their name becomes
the Naked Mole Rats.
Oh my God. I couldn't take the name seriously because Kim Possible, the Naked Mole Rat.
Call me, beat me
if you want to reach me. We're just Disney girls at heart.
I've never seen an episode of Kim Possible.
Shut up. Shigo is gay. Shigo was in my PowerPoint presentation of lesbian characters.
Yeah. I was her for Halloween 2 years ago.
Well, see, she's gay. She was hit by a rainbow comet, and that's how she got her powers.
Hey, anyway. Shout out Kimmy.
Shout out Shigo.
Okay, so
now we know there's a spy.
Yeah, we do.
And also, in the meantime, at night, Everly like can't sleep, and she decides she's gonna risk it, and she's gonna go start snooping around. She goes snooping around the tunnels. She finds a records room, and she finds all the files on everyone in her group and Micah. And so she reads Katak's file, and then she steals Micah's file. Yeah. And I don't fully remember Katak's story. Do you remember?
Yeah, so Katak was in foster care. And one of his he had two little foster siblings, and one of them was getting sexually abused by the older brother, the older foster sibling.
Right.
So he beat up the guy. And it was right when that happened that the rebellion showed up to take him.
Right.
So his wish was to make sure that his little foster sister was safe. Because he doesn't actually know the results of what happened. Yeah. He and his little sister now got left with these people. Really, really horrible and tragic.
So sad. And then it shows the, Katak's internal motivation and why he's working so hard to survive and keep going and motivating his team to continue going. Oh, it's so tragic.
Yeah, and both of his parents died. The reason he's in foster care, his parents died falling through the ice. I believe, just based off of this in context and also his name, I believe that Katak is probably Inuit.
That's what I was thinking. He was Inuit, yeah.
And I think maybe also this is potentially why he recognized Vashti's bindi. Not that the Inuit have bindis, but and this is also okay. I think that in the dust controlled world, that every region is very isolated. Yeah. And it's not like today where there's the internet and there's news and everyone's very connected and knows what's going on. I think that everything's very isolated and you don't know what's going on outside of like your own small community and world.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he would have known like, oh, in India, like there's Hinduism and then there's Bindis and this is the cultural meaning of that. I think that probably he understood the meaning of facial tattoos and that in some cultures like that has a lot of importance. Specifically in the Inuit culture, their tattoos are called tunit. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm sorry. But on women's faces and hands specifically, it represents their roles in their communities.
Oh. Oh, yeah. Is that like the chin one, like the Native American, some of the tribes have?
Yeah, they have them on their chins. They also have them on their foreheads and their hands. And so I think that he was probably in tune with this symbolism and due to the significance in his own culture, knew that this held importance to her standing in her own community and family, probably. So, very intelligent of Katak to clock that.
For sure. Okay, so she's not, and she also steals Micah's file because she hears something. She's got to get out of there. So she doesn't actually get to read it until a bit later. I think after their third trial. What's the third trial?
Was the third trial is where Inez got cut? Where they had to do...
Yes, and Vashti goes off. So they're it's almost like a capture the flag situation, but it's not guarded. You just have to make it to your checkpoint, get a like symbol of where you were, and then come back. And Everly has like fucked up her arm really bad. It's like in a cast. And oh gosh, what's the guy's name? Min June. That's what I thought it was. He is like a higher up. He's another mentor, and he like draws this map on Everly's cast. And she doesn't know exactly what it is because it's the Bloodwood tree and it's got the tunnels on it, but she's not like quite sure exactly what it is. And turns out he did this the day before the trial, and it's like a better map to where they're supposed to go, that it misses the booby traps, which is pretty cool. So they get there really early. And because of that, Vashti's like, cool, just like wait here. We only have to be back before nightfall. Like, I'm going to go. I'm going to take off. And they're like, no, like we have to stay together. Like, you can't just leave. And she's like, I'm leaving. And she does, which is crazy. And then they're all just like hanging out. And Katak and Inez have like a cute little flirtation going. And they decide to play hide and seek. And Everly is basically it, and she's counting. They hide, and then all of a sudden you hear like a scream, and it's also dark, so they hear a scream, and it's Inez, and they get to her and they don't see anyone around, but Inez has this like gash on her cheek. We don't know where it came from. We had no idea what's going on at this point.
So obviously people are thinking, okay, it's the spy, but now fingers are starting to get pointed.
Yes.
Who was there? Well, Vashti mysteriously disappeared right before this happened. Was it her? Everly was there. Was it her? You know, fingers are pointing.
Right.
Nobody knows who to trust, and it's starting to get really muddy in the Bloodwood Society.
Yeah. But they survive. Luckily. When did the bee, we forgot the bee attack.
Yeah, so this is another attack by the spies. They're tending to a beehive. All of the groups are tending to beehives. Right. And Micah does not show up to help them. And all of a sudden an arrow comes flying through, hits their hive. Bees come out and just swarm and attack everybody, but who gets the worst of it is obviously the naked mole rats, who are right next
Right
to the
underneath
attack
it.
hive.
And specifically Vashti.
Yes, we find out Vashti is allergic to bees, and this is life-threatening for her. But Micah's gone. There's nobody around to help. People have all like taken off running, and Vashti is like about to die.
Yeah.
So
like literally needs an EpiPen.
Yeah. So Everly takes off running, trying to find Minjun. They find Minjun to get her help, and Vashti ends up surviving. But this is where Micah ends up really having to have kind of a come to Jesus moment, because he ends up getting punished for this, for not being present. He had been sneaking away with Nicole during this time.
Yep.
And so he really gets a talking to and has to reevaluate what's important and what his role as a mentor is.
Yeah. Yeah, this reminded me of the Tracker Jackers in Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is like reminiscent. But yeah, she ends up getting the EpiPen basically, or something. We don't know what it is. And this is where we start to see that their injuries are healing really quickly. And, you know, Vashti's all better in a day or two. And then Everly's arm is healing fast, and they're not realizing the pace and speed of their recovery because they're literally in survival mode. So they're not being like, this, you know, break should take 6 weeks in this cast to heal. No, it's healed in like a week, and they're just so grateful to have their arm back because now they can climb better, you know. So they're not clocking that this is abnormal.
Right.
And Micah ends up, he like goes away for like 3 or 4 days or something as like his punishment, and like to figure out what he's doing with his life. And he comes back and he's made all these hammocks for the 4 group mates. And so now they're like off the ground and they're like a lot comfier. It's like a bonding moment for Micah to be like, I'm on your side. I'm on your team.
Right.
And then in the 4th trial is where Vashti and Everly end up together, and they like end up discovering the cure on accident.
This isn't even a trial. This is just Micah taking them to fish.
Oh, is it really?
Mm-hmm. Because the 4th trial is the moon tracker, right?
Well, then what's the 5th?
They cancel it.
Oh, thank God. Okay, so we're almost there. I swear I have really good reading comprehension, but I have also been dealing with 2 sick children, school, work. I'm just like trying to keep my fucking head on straight right now. Well, good. I'm so glad they canceled the 5th one. You're right. They did go fishing, and then Micah makes them. It's like this, like rafting again. Disney reference, Pocahontas. Shall I choose the smoothest course? No, she chooses the windy one, and she doesn't want to marry Coco. And so, but yeah, they take their little canoes, but it's like whitewater rafting. They're not gonna. They go and they fish. It's really great. Blah blah blah. They're all having a good time. But then they can't like get back up the stream. So they have to like walk on this hill and this like cliffside really high up, like holding their canoes. And Everly stops and like turns and just like whacks Vashti off this cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to give props to Everly because no one likes Vashti. She's super standoffish, like very in it for herself. I mean, I like her, but in knowing her story, I like further down the road, you're like, well, of course she's this way. Like, just let her be, you know? But Everly jumps in after her, which is crazy because the waves are insane. Like, I don't even know. Here, tell how they survived because like my brain is not working.
Well, they're just getting washed down waterfall after waterfall, and Everly hits her head. And which, me reading this, I'm from right next to Glacier National Park, and there are a lot of places that are just like this where there's a rushing river and you're walking on a trail that's on a cliff above it, and there are so many drowning deaths in Glacier Park every single year. It's the most common cause of death is so many people die of drownings in my home, like not just in
Basically just like this, just falling off.
like that, literally
Wow.
just like this, and also in the lakes, especially because our lakes are so cold.
Yeah.
But,
Oh
like,
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, all the time people die like this. And so reading this, I was like, there's no way that they live through this. Like, the water is so powerful that there's nothing that they can do. Like, their limbs are just gonna get twisted every which way. There's no way they can fight it. They can't swim against it. It's literally just gonna churn them around. They are gonna get stuck under a log. They're gonna get shoved down underneath a rock. Like, you're not coming out of that. But luckily, Vashti manages to get a hold of a tree limb. And
Like the Lion King.
oh my God. Yes.
I literally had all these thoughts reading it too.
And she sees Everly like coming, washing past her. And Everly at this point is unconscious.
Yeah.
Her lungs are full of water. She's been knocked out because she's hit her head too many times. And Vashti manages to grab her as well. So now she's hanging on to this branch and also has Everly. And the branch ends up breaking, but then they wash down. Like, it's essentially like a hole in the river. So they're on, it's like a platform almost, like a dry platform in the middle of the river in a hole, kind of, which is sort of hard to, when I'm describing it, I think that that's hard to imagine, but like when you're reading it, it sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
But what is clear to them is that like there's no way they're getting out. And also Vashti has to do CPR on Everly. And this part was actually really cute.
It was cute.
Because
she's like, I did that thing.
yes. So Vashti gives Everly CPR after they fall in the river, and then they laugh together.
I know. It's the first time.
Yes.
We see Vashti laugh.
Yes. Yes, it's a different side of her. It's like, okay, you just had this survival moment together, and now like they are bonded for life over this thing. And Everly is like, oh my God, I just had my first kiss with you.
Which, you know what that reminded me of? As Superstar. Oh my God.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh my God. When is our movie night, Haylie? There's no lesbians in that movie, or I'd say we'd cover it. There's a gay guy though. But anyway, they like, she likes the CPR because it's like making out.
Oh, gosh.
It's funny.
But then the Umbo shows up. And
which was so weird. I'm like, you're just following these two around. That's all you're doing.
Yeah, like how does she know she's here? But she's like, how did you find this place?
Yeah.
And then she ends up telling them like, well, I'm deciding whether or not to kill you right now. Because you found the cure. And basically tells them that the cure is on this island. It's what the rebellion is protecting, and it's how everybody's healing so quickly. And basically it's this liquid that if you drink it, then all of a sudden you're magically better. So now Everly's like, oh my God, I'm a little mad because you mean Shelby could have had this whole time?
Right.
And I've been like wasting my time doing all these freaking trials while she's dying, and you could have just,
and it's right here.
Yeah. And so the Umbo's like, yeah, so either I trust you to keep a secret or I kill you, and I'm not really sure what. And she ends up trusting them to keep a secret and wipes their memories so that they don't know how to get there again.
Right.
Well, drugs them, I guess, is what she does. She like really drugs them.
Probably some GHB.
And that's how we find out about the cure.
Right.
and how Everly gets her first kiss. But also, what's really important that happens in there is while they are stuck on this platform trying to figure out what the heck to do before the Umbo shows up, Everly ends up getting out of Vashti what her real story was. And that is that Vashti was a child bride and a lesbian. Well, actually, I don't think we find out about the lesbian.
We don't find out about that, but it went well together.
Yeah, but she was a child bride, and that's a really big part of probably why she is the way that she is, but also it's why she's here, is she was desperate.
Miserable.
So, background of the red bindi on her forehead is that a bindi is a Hindu symbol that's worn by an Indian woman and is placed at the 6th chakra, or the third eye. And what a chakra is it's an area of concentrated energy. And the third eye is the eye of intuition and intellect, and the bindi's purpose is to enhance the chakra's powers and facilitate one's ability to access their inner wisdom or guru and allow them to forsake their ego and rid them of their false labels. So,
and it's also a symbol of marriage.
Exactly. So this signifies piety and looking inward toward God, and then the red specifically, because there's other colors of
oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
If you have a red one, then that's what signifies that you're married.
Oh, what do the other colors signify?
I think there's black ones that I'm not sure. I think that I don't really want to like say because I don't know. But generally everything else that I said is kind of like what that placement means. But once you become married, then that's what the red means. And child marriage in India is a
black bindi is a widow. I know. Okay, go
on. Child marriage in India is a practice that people have been working really hard to put a stop to.
Yeah.
It is still a current issue today. A fifth of girls and a sixth of boys are married as children. And that's according to the Harvard School of Public Health in 2023.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So very recent statistic there. And Vashti says that child marriages used to be illegal, but the war sent them back 200 years. So, like what I was kind of saying earlier is that a lot has changed in the time from where we are today in 2024 and the world that we're living in and the world that they're living in 2070. And so you send them back 200 years, no longer is it illegal. It is illegal today, but it still happens. Rates have gone down a lot since the early 2000s and the late 90s. But they've actually gone up since in like the last 10 years. Yeah. So Vashti's story is that her uncle, who isn't actually her uncle, but is somebody who was like her uncle to her, sold her to an old man who paid a bunch of money to marry her, who was a dust handler. Ugh. And if she didn't go through with it, he threatened to sell her little sisters to him instead.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
That's an impossible position to be in. So on her wedding day, the old guy who she was marrying came in and gave her a bag of diamonds and tried to kiss her. And she bashed his teeth in with an incense holder and then ran. And her mom and sisters hid her down the laundry chute so that she could get away. Mm-hmm. And the maid at the bottom of the laundry chute caught her in the cart and then took her to the Bloodwood Society. So the maid played the same role for Vashti that Micah played for Everly.
Right.
So also we see that the mom and sisters didn't want this to happen to Vashti, but were powerless. So That's her background.
Okay. So their memories are wiped. They get taken out of where the cure is. They come back, and like the next night, again, there's still a spy on the island. We still know that. And there's been these series of attacks. There's been the bees, there's been the cut to Inez. I forget how Everly broke her arm, but I don't think that was an attack. Was it? I don't remember. But now we find out that there's this game. It's the game we talked about in the first part of this, where we talked about how it's like mafia and you get a mark, and then the last one alive like wins. Mm-hmm. And talk about terrifying, especially because the mark that she gets is the girl whose leg she broke in the beginning, who has a twin brother on the island who really, really hates Everly. Mm-hmm. So, but Everly is really smart, ends up using that to her advantage to kind of make some allies. And yeah, this whole game commences. Inez says she's out. We already kind of told you what happened there. Inez says she's out like the first night, and then Katak and Vashti are out at the exact same time. So it's just Everly. And we find out that she's one of 5 left at the end of the first night, or like the next morning. And from there, we finally see Vashti hopping on the team bandwagon after her and Everly have bonded. And they're all working together to try and get Vashti to win. Or not Vashti, I'm sorry, to get Everly to win. And in the midst of this, Vashti gets like herself kidnapped, and it's this whole ordeal. I don't feel like we need to go into like every little detail, but she finds Vashti. Vashti is being held hostage by Nicole, and that's where we hear about Nicole's kind of story about how if the rebellion has this cure, why don't they let people use it? Like, why do we have to be tortured in order to be saved? And the dust is no better than the rebellion, and vice versa. And it's like this whole kind of like crisis moment. And, Everly is watching this exchange happen between Vashti and Nicole. And then Katak and Inez like come down this, like, they're in boats and they like have to go down this like cave thing. It was very vivid in my head. I'm having a hard time putting it like into words. And that like freaks out Nicole. They save Vashti, but then everyone is called together. Oh, and Min June comes in to help and is murdered. And we really liked him. Mm-hmm. He was like the healer of the group and helped Everly with the cast and everything, so they didn't go through all the booby traps. And now the Umbo calls everyone back together and is like, Everly, you're the spy. And I was like, oh, like I was not expecting that to happen whatsoever. And they're like, yeah, like we know it was you. You must have cut her face because you were there. And they bring in Katak and Inez to like basically testify against her. And they're trying like the way they're answering or asking the questions, it's like painting Everly as guilty. And we see the Umbo being basically a giant dictator. It's just so negative. Like these groups are just so negative.
Yeah. Yes. So Vashti is already in jail downstairs.
Jail for you.
And Everly then is sentenced to death and is sent to jail as well. And they get to jail, and that's where Nicole and her sidekick come out. And his name is Arsene. I don't know how to say it. It's spelled very funky. But,
I don't know either.
Basically, Arsene is like super in love with Nicole and thinks that like basically he's in this because Nicole was like, oh yeah, well, if you help me, then when we leave, like we're gonna live happily ever after. Uh-huh. And he's like, oh yeah, obviously that's what's gonna happen. But Nicole and Micah had been together this whole time, if we remember, and she like mysteriously dumped him a little bit ago. out of nowhere, and Micah is all sorts of sad about it.
Yeah.
And basically, everyone's like, what the heck, Nicole? But this is, yeah. So then Nicole tells her whole story, and then they're trying to take Vashti and Everly to come join them to help the dust and get the cure, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Vashti and Everly have already like broken themselves out of jail. But then they come and get rescued by
Dun,
some
dun,
of
dun,
these, like
dun.
Ibami and, you know, some of these other higher ups, because it was all a setup, because they knew that if they blamed Everly, then Nicole would come in and be like, see, you're already done for, like, come join us. And so they were just trying to like lure her in. And yeah, so they catch her, and that's all good, and Everly has her name cleared. But we do end up finding out that Nicole was just using Arseny because she knew that, like, you know, he's good manpower and he would do anything for her. And she was like, yeah, I'm not in love with Micah. Like, ew, not Micah. But then actually she is in love with Micah, and Micah is the one who's able to talk some sense into her.
I know.
And he's the one that ends up getting her to like stand down and not kill Vashti. Because they have this huge fight standoff situation. But it's like in this last kind of big culmination of events.
Yeah.
Where Vashti reveals to Everly that she's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, boys aren't really for me. Like, I'd like to, you know, date a girl probably. And
yeah.
Everly's like, oh, really? Cool. Okay.
Yeah,
and,
literally, that's like it.
Yeah, and that's the lesbianism. And we find out that back when Vashti disappeared, when Inez's face got cut, it's because she was sneaking out to hook up with Ibami.
Mm-hmm.
And her and Ibami are like a thing. And it's crazy because Ibami had voted to get Vashti kicked off the island in Other Death.
Yes.
And because she thought that Vashti was like helping Everly with the spy situation and helped with killing Minjun.
Yep.
But then anyway, they got over that, and
they're all fine.
Their romance. And I don't know how you get over your girlfriend like sentencing you to Other Death, but whatever.
I mean, you know, it was for the plot.
Yeah. But it's funny because Vashti was using Chen as a beard. So
yes.
like Ibami and Vashti were actually sneaking out and like hooking up, but Chen is gay. And so Vashti and Chen were each other's beards.
Which is such a great little setup.
Yeah. But it made me think of like, okay, well, what is the climate in the Bloodwood Society regarding homosexuality that they feel like they're having to have beards?
Well, you know, it might not, now that I'm thinking about it, because you just said it, it's probably not the culture and climate that, like, it probably wasn't known, but coming from all of these backgrounds, we know that when dictatorships take over, like in government, rights are reversed, right? And things become less acceptable in like a progressive way. So I'm assuming with the dust and control, homosexuality is probably not a great thing that they like, as we see, because dictatorships are far right. So they're not going to be okay with like homosexuality or anything like that. So I don't know if it was the culture of the rebellion, because normally the rebellions are more left, right? So normally they're more accepting. But it's probably them just doing what they know, which is hiding.
Right.
And like trying not to draw extra attention, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be my take. But do you think it has something to do with like the group dynamics at the Bloodwood Society?
I don't know. See, because I couldn't really tell.
Yeah.
It didn't go into that. It didn't address that. So I wasn't sure. It just made me really curious about that element of this.
Well, I mean, their umbo gives off a big dyke energy, so
yeah, for sure. I want to know, who do you think would play her?
Michelle Rodriguez.
I have to look her up.
Oh my God, come on. Really? Blue Crush?
Really? You think?
Let me make sure it's the right person.
Okay, maybe I could see that. I pictured the Umbo.
Fast and the Furious. Her character in Fast and the Furious and her character in Blue Crush. She's just like, I feel like.
I pictured the Umbo as kind of this like really collected, like calm, cool, collected Black woman with like just really beautiful, powerful aura around her.
Yeah, like a Viola Davis.
Like a very commanding presence, but young. Because everybody here, we didn't mention this.
That's what I'm
here is
saying.
like under 20 years old.
Look.
Yeah, I see that. I can see it.
I'm showing a picture of her from Michelle Rodriguez from Lost. And she is like cool, calm, and collected. She just has that like underpinning of like boss energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
That's my vibe. Oh, we have to finish with basically like they become a part of the Bloodwood Society. They do their tattoos, which mark them, but you can't see unless they're under a UV light, which is pretty cool. I thought that was a really cool little sci-fi aspect. And they get sent back and they rescue Shelby and do they cure her?
Yeah, so Shelby had been sent to we find out that there are more than one like camps of the Bloodwood Society that aren't just at the Bloodwood Tree. And Shelby had been rescued at the same time as Everly and taken to this place. And so had her friend who
her sweet little friend, her crush.
Yeah, who had also gotten taken with Shelby because he had gone in and tried to help her when she was getting arrested at the beginning. So, and they used the cure to save her.
Yeah. And there's definitely going to be a sequel because the book ends basically with the two sisters talking and being like, now we're going to go get dad. And that reminded me kind of Black Widow. I have so many. I did hold off on referencing Wakanda when talking about the cure. So I don't know why, but my brain is just like Disney mode, I guess. I did watch a lot of Disney with my sick children, so it could be why.
But we find out about the dad we find out that the dad was the old Umbo.
Yes, the dad was the Umbo and she had like familial rights to be in the group or whatever, which they mention in passing. And she's like, what? So that was fun. That was interesting. Yeah. But yeah, I would absolutely read the sequel.
Oh, yeah,
I need to find out what happens. And I want to hear more about the dad's story if he was an Umbo. You know what else this movie reminded me of is the show The Wilds, which if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's like a women's Lord of the Flies, and there are lesbians on that show, and it's great. It's great. Okay. It's like a tamer version of Yellow Jackets with like more of a psychological twist.
Okay.
So it's very good.
Okay. I want to talk about gayness and India and Vashti.
Yeah, let's do it. And then we'll let you guys know what we're doing next and what book we're doing next.
Okay. Let's do it. We already know that she is Hindu because she has the bindi on, right? And that's a Hindu symbol. So Hinduism and homosexuality is a topic that I'm about to get into here, which Hinduism is a karmic religion and it does not condemn homosexuality as a sin. The concept of sin isn't even really present in Hinduism because it's not an Abrahamic religion like Christianity is. It's a karmic religion. And so that's not conducive to the whole idea of they believe it in coming back forever,
reincarnation
in reincarnations, so going to hell and that sort of thing.
The way I look at it is a lot of Western religions are like justice oriented, while a lot of the Eastern religions are honor oriented. So with our justice, it's like right, wrong. Theirs is like honor, dishonor, right? So theirs is can be a lot more fluid with things. It's just whether it brings honor or it brings shame, versus ours are like a set rules,
Right.
set rule book. Yeah.
Yeah. So another really interesting piece of homosexuality and Hinduism is that in a lot of the mythic stories that are part of the Hindu religion are the gods and goddesses in these stories exhibit gender fluidity and queer orientations. So if people practicing Hinduism are looking at their stories, their religious stories, then and they're seeing this in their gods and goddesses, then they're not going to turn around and say that homosexuality is bad when people practice it, right? So they're not.
You would hope.
Right. They're not condemning it as bad. Now, India and homosexuality. Today, in 2009, homosexuality was criminalized. And then in 2023, it was again decriminalized. LGBTQ plus citizens were after the right to same-sex marriage in 2023, which was denied. But the justice ruled that they were not to be discriminated against for their relationships or their identities. So,
okay. And I do just want to point out that India is not just a Hindu like state. It also has a very high percentage of Muslims. It does have a decent percentage of Christians, although they are a much smaller, but it is very much like a Hindu and Muslim community. And so there's a lot of interchange and a lot of interesting dynamics and some harmful dynamics in there as well. So I don't want to like make it sound like the Hindus are the ones passing laws when it's kind of all in there, but I just wanted to point that out.
No, right. Yeah. So that's why there's a big difference between a lot of like the Hindu belief system and what's happening in the law today is like.
And I think that's the same here with like, if you actually look at Christianity and then like what fanatical Christianity can do to the laws, they're not necessarily congruent,
Right. Yeah, exactly. So this is what's happening in modern day. And then the Bloodwood Society takes place. I misspoke earlier. I said 2070, but it takes place in 2075. So that's 50 years in the future.
Shame on you. Those 5 years are real important.
That's 50 years in the future that a society has fallen apart and departed from what we know today. But we can see from various characters that come to the Bloodwood Society from around the world that parts of their culture, traditions, and influences from their regions and heritages have remained intact.
Yeah.
So if Vashti's community at home knew about her queerness, they may have accepted her, but it may have been a general knowledge and acceptance that she would never be allowed to marry or have a life with a woman.
Yeah. And I have a hard time believing that anybody knew about Vashti's orientation before she came, because when you are in survival mode, like, you have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You're just trying to survive. You're not going to get to like the self-actualization step and where like understanding your sexual identity comes into play, right? It was only she always obviously knew it about herself, but I don't think anybody would have been let in on that because there was just never an opportunity or reason to let someone in,
Right.
That's how I would think it would, unless there were extenuating circumstances, but she's being forced into child marriage, right? Yeah. So I just don't feel like, I feel like she did feel safer in the Bloodwood Society because there are also already out and like-minded people in there, which probably means it was a pretty open society, right? If it be me they obviously had to figure it out with each other, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I can't imagine Vashti being the one to approach her, Probably had to be the other way around.
Yeah, I would see Ebony as the more
Yeah.
forward character in that aspect.
Yeah.
But exactly what you're saying here is that we also know that when societies crumble and regimes take over, as the dust has done across the world, that harsher and more controlling rules are put into place to control people, and that this may have wiped out all hope for people like Vashti to even come out.
Yes, exactly. The fear.
Yeah.
It's just not, it sets everyone back. And they, like she said, set them back 200 years. That's going into the, the 1800s. That's in the
Yes.
early 1800s. So that's definitely even more non-accepting time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and now I'm thinking, going back to what we were talking about, of like, well, why were they using each other's beards while they were inside the Bloodwood Society, her and Chen?
Yeah.
Thinking about, like, well, if being gay was unacceptable outside of the Bloodwood Society, then it probably would have been smart to keep it low key while inside of the rebellion until she knew that she could trust someone. And she found out that she can trust Everly because Everly proved to her over and over and over again that she was going to be trustworthy. She jumped into the river to save her life. She went and saved Vashti in the middle of that game, putting her own life at risk. She ran to help her when she got stung by the bees. She just over and over did things to help Vashti at her own detriment.
Yeah.
And that really proved to Vashti that this was somebody that was trustworthy of a secret that she had held for a long time.
Yeah.
So that probably played a huge part in that.
Yeah, I think so too. Thanks for doing all that research.
Oh my gosh. When I get started, I just get really interested. Also, if
and you have all that time while you're waiting for me to finish.
If anybody wants to learn more about the stuff that I have said, because I am no expert on Hinduism or India by any means, this was just kind of some very surface level stuff that I looked into because I wanted to know more about Vashti and what may have influenced her character and her story, and Katak as well. I was looking at the Hindu American Foundation for this information at the Harvard School of Public Health. So if anybody...
You could link them in the show notes below. Yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to take a look, go ahead and do that. There's also a lot more resources out there. And if anybody wants to correct me on anything, then go ahead and do that too, because who knows? Maybe I got something wrong, and I am always welcome. You're always welcome to correct me if I got anything wrong. So
yeah, we're very open to feedback, very open to being corrected. Okay, yeah. If you haven't read this book, absolutely read it. I can't wait for a sequel. I am very excited. We'll definitely cover it because hopefully there's a little more gayness in it. And lesbianism specifically, please. Haylie, what book are we doing next?
We are reading Stone Butch Blues. And
yes.
Oh my gosh.
This has actually been a highly requested one. We get a lot of DMs of people being like, oh, you're going to do this book. And Stone Butch Blues has been in there a handful of times. And I think Riley recommended it and a few other people.
The fan mail we got.
Yes. Jax. I remember.
Jax, yes. I do want to say for our listeners, trigger warning, it is very, very honest and truthful and graphic. It is the story of a real life of a butch woman that was living throughout the 1900s that went through a lot of really, really painful things. And so if you have trauma regarding homophobia or sexual assault, then just enter this carefully if you choose to read it or listen to our episode on that. So I just want you to take care of yourselves. But it is a very powerful read, and I will recommend it if you can handle that sort of thing. So Just
Definitely.
go into that aware.
Yes. And we'll put another trigger warning at the beginning of that episode as well. In between, because again, I'm a slow reader. We'll probably be doing another L word episode and possibly a movie episode with Imagine Me and You with a guest co-host, which will be really fun. Oh, that was you. I thought Zoom was making a noise at me. Yeah, so we're really looking forward to it. And we love you guys. Thank you for always being so supportive and listening to our episodes. We really have a great time just chatting with you.
We love you guys. Bye.
Love you. Bye.